People always ask how long the signs were there. They want a clear timeline, a moment where everything obviously shifted, a sentence I should have paid attention to, or a behavior that, in hindsight, should have made me run. I don't have that. What I had was a relationship that looked solid enough to excuse everything that felt slightly off. I met Marcus at a mutual friend's birthday dinner almost 4 years ago. He wasn't the loudest person at the table, didn't dominate the conversation, didn't flirt aggressively. He listened, asked questions, remembered details. When he asked for my number at the end of the night, it didn't feel like a move. It felt natural. Our relationship grew slowly, which I took as a good sign. We didn't rush milestones. We didn't argue dramatically. We handled problems quietly, efficiently. Marcus liked to describe us as low drama, and I wore that label with pride. After years of dating men who mistook chaos for passion, calm felt mature, healthy, sustainable. That belief became the foundation I built everything else on. We moved in together after a year and a half. Shared finances came later. Engagement discussions happened casually at first, like an idea we were both slowly circling. When Marcus finally proposed, it wasn't extravagant. No crowd, no spectacle. Just the two of us on a weekend away, a ring pulled out without fanfare. I cried immediately. Not because I was surprised, I wasn't, but because it felt like confirmation, like I had chosen correctly, like all the patience and compromise had paid off. Our families were thrilled. Friends congratulated us. People kept saying things like, "You two are so solid, and this makes sense." I agreed. For the first few months of our engagement, nothing changed on the surface. We toured venues, discussed guest lists, had minor disagreements about budgets and seating arrangements, the normal stuff. But beneath that normalcy, small moments started stacking up. They weren't loud enough to be called red flags, just dissonance. Marcus started spending more time on his phone, especially when we were around his friends. He'd angle the screen away without meaning to, smile at messages without explaining them. If I asked who he was talking to, he'd say, "The guys." Like that was the end of the conversation. And I accepted that answer, because why wouldn't I? I trusted him. His friends were a tight group, mostly men he'd known since university. They were sarcastic, blunt, and bonded over shared history. I wouldn't say they ever openly disliked me, but I was never fully inside their circle either. I told myself that was normal. Then came the engagement drinks. It was a casual gathering, nothing formal, just drinks at a bar his friends liked. At some point, one of them raised his glass and said, laughing, "Honestly, I still can't believe you pulled this off, man." Everyone laughed, including me. Not because I understood the joke, but because I didn't want to be the person who ruined the moment by asking for clarification. Later that night, when we were alone, I asked Marcus what that comment meant. He didn't hesitate. "They're idiots," he said. "Don't read into it." And I didn't, at least not consciously. 2 weeks later, Marcus asked me to reply to a message on his phone while he was in the shower. His hands were covered in soap. His battery was low. The request felt ordinary. I didn't hesitate. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. I had never once felt the need to check his phone. Trust, to me, meant not looking for problems that hadn't announced themselves. The message I was supposed to reply to never arrived. Instead, a notification banner slid down from the top of the screen. Group chat. The inner circle message preview. "She actually believes you don't notice it, haha." I stared at the screen longer than I should have. I remember telling myself there had to be context, a misunderstanding, a joke I wasn't aware of. I remember thinking that opening the chat would feel invasive, and also knowing that not opening it would mean pretending I hadn't seen anything. So I opened it. The messages loaded slowly, and with every second my stomach sank further. The chat went back almost a year. Not daily messages, but consistent enough to establish a pattern. Jokes about my clothes, comments about my job, remarks about how easygoing I was, how I never made things difficult. At first, I tried to rationalize it. People joke, friend groups exaggerate. Maybe I was being sensitive. Then I saw Marcus's messages. Not silence, not discomfort, participation. One message stopped me completely. "That's why this works. She doesn't question anything." I read it again, then again. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Shock, embarrassment, confusion, but above all, disbelief. Not that his friends were talking about me, but that he was. The man who proposed to me. The man planning a future with me. The man who slept next to me every night. I put the phone down when I heard the shower turn off. My hands were shaking. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I asked him to sit down and told him what I'd seen. For a brief moment, Marcus looked genuinely startled. Not devastated. Not ashamed. Just surprised that I knew. Then his expression changed. "It's not what it looks like." he said quickly. I asked him to explain. They're just jokes, he said. You weren't meant to see that. That phrase lodged itself in my chest. You weren't meant to see that. So you knew it would hurt me, I said. No, he replied immediately. It's just how they talk. And you? I asked. You talk like that too? He hesitated. That pause told me more than anything else. I didn't think you'd take it personally, he said finally. I stared at him. They're talking about me. Yes, but how exactly am I supposed to not take that personally? His tone shifted then, less apologetic, more defensive. You're overreacting, he said. You're reading it emotionally. Emotionally, like respect was a math equation I'd miscalculated. I asked him why he never shut it down. He shrugged. It wasn't that serious. I asked him why he contributed. He sighed. I didn't want to be the odd one out. That sentence landed harder than the jokes ever could. People assume the moment you discover betrayal, clarity follows. It doesn't. What follows is confusion, self-doubt, the weight of everything you've already invested. I didn't pack a bag that night. I didn't take my ring off. I slept in the same bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction I'd had with his friends, every moment I'd brushed off as harmless. The next morning, Marcus acted like nothing had happened. He made coffee, asked about my day, kissed my forehead before leaving for work. It felt surreal, like the conversation from the night before had been absorbed into the walls instead of acknowledged. When I brought it up again later, he looked irritated. I already said sorry, he said. What more do you want? I didn't know how to answer that. Because what I wanted wasn't an apology. It was understanding. And he didn't have it. Over the next few days, I noticed something unsettling. Every apology came with a condition. I said sorry, but you shouldn't have read it. I messed up, but you're blowing it up. I admitted fault, but you're punishing me now. The responsibility kept shifting. From his behavior to my reaction. From his choices to my sensitivity. And slowly, quietly, I started doubting myself. Was I making this bigger than it needed to be? Was this just how men talked when women weren't around? Was ending an engagement over this actually unreasonable? That doubt scared me more than the messages. Because it meant I was beginning to rationalize disrespect. Not because it was acceptable, but because leaving felt terrifying. I haven't told anyone exactly what I saw. I haven't exposed him. I haven't made a scene. I'm just sitting with the knowledge that the person I planned to marry was comfortable letting others laugh at me while I wasn't in the room. Everyone keeps saying I'm overreacting, that this is normal, that no relationship is perfect. But I can't shake the feeling that respect shouldn't be something you have to negotiate for. So now I'm stuck between staying and slowly learning to accept this version of love or leaving and being painted as dramatic for walking away. Am I the asshole?